Hello, welcome to the talk revisiting the modifiable area unit problem in deep traffic prediction with visual analytics. This is Zeng from Shenzhen Institute of Advanced Technology, Chinese Academy of Sciences. And this is our collaborating work with researchers from Xiamen University, Central South University, University of Warwick, and Zhejiang University. So we know traffic prediction is very important for urban planning and traffic management. Okay. Existing algorithms such as ARIMA takes advantage of repeating occurrence in temporal historical data. For instance, this is a spatial and temporal view of the traffic movement in Shenzhen. You can see the area of airport and the south part of Shenzhen. We have more traffic movement, and we can also see peak and non-peak hours in both weekdays and weekends. And these temporal patterns are repeating every week. Okay. Nowadays, more and more deep neural networks are applied in traffic prediction, such as to capture the complex nonlinear and spatial and temporal properties. So we investigate ST-ResNet that predicts the inflow and outflow volumes in regions. Okay. Here is how ST-ResNet works. So first, it will partition our underlying territory into grids, and then it will aggregate the inflow and outflow in each grid. Next, it will model the spatial temporal flows as a sequence of raster image. And then it will apply the convolution-based residual neural network to make predictions. However, we know the traffic aggregation are influenced by both partition shape and scales. For instance, in this movement data, the aggregation can be aggregated by different grids or by traffic analysis zones. And we can also aggregate in different scales, for instance, the 2x2 grids or 4x4 grids. This phenomenon is called the modifiable area unit problem. Okay. It can be regarded as an example of Simpson's paradox. Okay. Also, this kind of inputs can be small difference, but the output can be significantly different because of the adversary interpretation problem of DNN. In collaboration with a researcher in geography and transportation analysis, we distill three research goals. First, we would like to understand the MAUP effect on traffic aggregations. Second, we would like to understand how the output, the prediction, will vary upon the input. And third, we would like to support the exploration of an individual region instead of some kind of summary statistics like root mean square error. Okay. We further derive three analytical tasks. First, we would like to support spatial variation exploration of both input traffic and output predictions. Second, we would like to support spatial association analysis to examine the spatial dependency and the spatial non-stationarity. And last, we would like to support scale-independent comparison, such that to remove the scaling effect of different attribution ranges. For instance, here we have two predictions, and both of them the mean absolute error is 10, but we prefer the first one. One thing to mention is that the internal working mechanism of DNN is not our interest because we are not model developers. So the MAUP is very important, and the visualization community has developed many spatial partition algorithms to support better movement visualization. And also, we have developed many visualization and visual analytical techniques to explore and suppress the MAUP. Of course, the GIS community, they have formulated many theories for reasoning the MAUP, developed many techniques to quantify the MAUP, and identified the impacts of the MAUP on different applications. Recently, there was a paper suggests that visualization techniques are strongly encouraged to explore the MAUP. However, they also pointed out that existing visualizations are limited to the newness of the techniques and the complexity of displaying such a large and diverse amount of spatially represented data. Okay, so they developed a ESDA approach. So we checked what kind of visualization techniques they developed, and we found that they mainly use a bivariate choropleth map and a Morris I scatter plot. To the domain experts, these visualization techniques are more easily understandable. Okay, and both of them can actually be categorized as unity visualization. Based on the design rationales of coordinated views, overview plus detail, unity visualization, we develop a coordinated multiple view system that mainly includes a control panel, a bivariate map, a scatter plot, and a multi-scale attribution view. The visualization modules mainly include, first, a bivariate map to support spatial variation exploration, task 1. So the map can show traffic volume and prediction errors simultaneously using value suppressing uncertainty palettes. So here we would like to emphasize those grids with higher prediction errors, that is the grids in dark red. We also integrate a temporal view to show the temporal variations of all time steps of a selected region. Second, we include a Morris I scatter plot to reveal the spatial autocorrelation of traffic volumes in each grid-based partition and the local tract task 2. So here we use queen continuity spatial weight matrices with 3x3 matrix size, that is the convolution kernel size used by spatial ST-ResNet. We also decompose the global Morris I into local indicators of spatial association indices. Okay. Last, we design a multi-scale attribution view to support scale-independent comparison, task 3. So here, each dot represents a region with the position sorted in ascending order by absolute prediction error, the size corresponding to the traffic volume, and the color encodes according to scale-independent matrices. We also design the 3 plots of partition scales in a hierarchical structure to support comparison. Our alternative design for the multi-scale attribution view is the nonlinear dot plots. In nonlinear dot plots, the horizontal positions are based on prediction errors, and the dot size are adjusted based on the number of dots in each stack, colored based on scale-independent matrices. However, we can see many gaps in between stacks, so the space usage is not very efficient, and the size doesn't corresponding to the traffic volume, so it can lead to misleading correlation analysis and spoil multi-scale comparison, because the real dot size should be like this. We evaluate our system using 2 months taxi data in Shenzhen. We partition the Shenzhen area using grids partition and also TAZ partition followed by rasterization, and partition the region into 3 scales of 50 times 25, 100 times 50, and 200 times 100. That is, we totally built 6 ST-ResNet models. So in the first study, we would like to diagnose multi-scale predictions. So in using the root mean square error, we can see that grid partition achieves the best performance at scale 100 and times 50. However, if we compare using the scale independent matrices, we can see actually the scale 50 times 25 is best. Okay. Second, if we compare root mean square error at a scale 100 times 50, we can see that grid partition and TIZ partition achieve the same performance. However, again, if we're using scale independent matrices, we can see the TIZ partition actually achieves much better performance, especially for the airport region. And last, we investigate individual units. So here we compare the units of airport region and highway station region using TIZ partition and grid partition again. We can see that with TIZ partition, the predictions for the airport region are significantly improved, whilst those for the station are not improved much. This is probably because the TIZ for the airport region is very big, so the traffic volume there is smooth. So from these studies, we can learn that fine-grained partition scales may not generate good scale-independent matrices. We can also see that root mean square error is not a good indicator, especially if we want to compare multi-scale partitions. Lastly, we can see that TIZ partition is more suitable than grid partition for deep traffic prediction. This also suggests that other partition methods, such as gradual partition proposed in GIS and transportation, can improve network prediction. Okay, so we should encourage collaboration in multiple disciplinaries. For the future work, we can try graph convolutional networks or attention mechanisms to improve the network prediction. Okay, so this is all for my talk. Thanks.